At the family barbecue, Mom looked me in the eyes in front of everyone and said, "If you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would even notice." Everyone started laughing, but I stayed silent. That same night I disappeared. 1 year later, that same family was standing at the gate of my mansion. The backyard at Mom's house was thick with the smell of barbecue, the bitterness of smoke, and the sharp scent of meat burning over the grill. Derek stood by the grill flipping burgers. Ashley was setting paper plates out on the deck. And Mom sat under the patio umbrella with a glass of white wine in her hand, like the whole evening had been staged for her. It was one of those hot Texas nights when kids ran around screaming, the sprinklers were going, and people laughed so loudly you could tell they weren't really happy. I walked in carrying a big bowl of pasta salad because Mom had texted me that morning, "Bring something people will actually eat." I had barely set the bowl down on the table when she looked me up and down and said, "Well, Nora made it. Everybody better pray nobody gets food poisoning." A few people laughed. Ashley gave me a fake little smile. "Ignore her." "I do," I said. Derek flipped a burger. "Nora, are you still living in that tiny apartment?" "Yes." "The one over the nail salon?" "Yes, Derek. That one." He whistled. 32 years old and still living like a college student. Impressive. Ron laughed under his breath. I stood there holding a plastic serving spoon while they talked about my life like I wasn't even standing in front of them. Mom took a sip of wine, straightened a little in her chair and looked directly into my eyes. "If you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would even know." The sounds around me kept going, but something inside me stopped cold. A kid ran past holding a melting popsicle. Somebody dumped ice into the cooler. Ashley laughed. Derek let out a loud bark of laughter. Aunt Linda lifted a napkin to her mouth. I looked only at Mom. "What?" He shrugged. "Oh, please don't make that face. It was a joke." Ashley said, "Oh my God, Nora, relax." I looked at her. "Relax." Derek pointed the spatula at me. "Don't turn it into a thing." The water bottle in my hand crackled. "You just said that if I disappeared nobody would care." Mom leaned back in her chair. "Because you drift in and out anyway. You barely talk. You always look like you have a problem with everyone. Then you expect people to comfort you. You're exhausting." I said quietly, "I pick up your prescriptions. I pick Ashley's kids up from school. I paid for your transmission." Mom rolled her eyes. "There she goes. Who paid Dad's hospital bills when he died?" For 1 second something flashed across her face. Then it hardened back into anger. "Do you want applause? You told me there wasn't any money." "There wasn't." "Then where did mine go?" The words came out on their own. For a second Mom's eyes narrowed. Ashley turned and stared at me. "What does that mean?" I grabbed my purse. "Forget it." Mom stood up. "No. Say it." But I was done. Completely done. I turned and headed for the driveway. Behind me Ashley called out, "You're really leaving?" Mom crossed her arms. "Let her go. She's proving my point." I turned and looked at all of them. This was my family. These were the people I had helped, carried, run around for and spent money on. Not one face looked ashamed. The only thing bothering them was that the evening had gotten awkward. Mom said, "Nobody's stopping you." I nodded. "I know." Then I left. Nobody came after me. By the time I got back to my apartment it was dark. I kicked my sandals off by the door and stood in my tiny kitchen staring at the microwave clock. My phone buzzed. It was the family group chat. "Ashley, you overreacted." "Derek. You humiliated Mom in front of everybody." "Mom, call me when the crazy wears off." Then another text came in. "Mom, and don't twist what happened to fit your version." I threw my phone onto the couch. About an hour later I got a voicemail from an unknown Chicago number. "Ms. Nora Bennett, this is Daniel Kessler. I'm an attorney representing the estate of Thomas Hale. I've been trying to reach you for some time. Please call me back." Thomas Hale. According to my mother, he was the man who had left before I was even born. A rich coward who had never wanted anything to do with me. That was always the whole story. I called back immediately. On the second ring a man answered. "Daniel Kessler. This is Nora." He let out a breath like he had been waiting all day for that call. "Thank you for calling back. Are you alone?" "Yes." "Good. There's something important you need to know. Thomas Hale passed away 3 months ago." I stayed leaning against the counter. "Okay. And you also need to know that he never abandoned you. He spent years trying to contact you. Legally documented attempts. I said nothing. You are his only surviving child. Under the terms of his will, the majority of his estate was left to you. A laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. No. Yes. We have paternity documents, child support records, certified letters, trust paperwork, photographs, and strong evidence that information was intentionally kept from you. I stood up straight. By who? There was a short silence. Then he said, your mother. The air in the room changed. He kept going. There was an education trust in your name. Once you turned 18, funds were supposed to be released for housing and education. Requests were submitted under your name, but we believe those submissions were fraudulent, and the money was redirected elsewhere. I sat down on the couch. No. Can you come to Chicago tomorrow? I looked around my apartment. The cheap lamp. The stack of unpaid bills. The life I had always been living half-breath by half-breath. When? As soon as possible. I packed a bag that same night. I didn't tell anyone. As I folded clothes, an old memory came rushing back so hard it made my chest ache. I was 19, standing in Mom's kitchen, asking whether anything had been left from Dad's insurance, or whether that college money she had once mentioned in anger had ever really existed. She had slammed a cabinet door and said, there's nothing. Don't ask like you're entitled to some big life. And then I remembered something worse. I had apologized to her. I had apologized. That was the kind of house it had been. A place where something was taken from you, and then you were made to feel ashamed for noticing. The next morning, Daniel laid out the files for me one by one in his office. My birth certificate with Thomas Hale clearly listed as my father. Court records showing he had paid child support for years. Certified letters sent to my mother's address, some accepted, some refused, none of them ever shown to me. Then the photographs. In one, I was sitting on a man's shoulders. In another, we were standing near a lake. In a third, he was holding my hand outside a zoo. I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. I didn't remember anything clearly, but something deep inside me hurt in a strange, quiet way, like my body remembered even if my mind didn't. Then he opened the fraud file. When I turned 18, trust funds had been withdrawn using forged signatures in my name. The money had gone into an account controlled by Mom. 2 credit cards had also been opened using my social security number. One had been used for repairs on Mom's house. The other had been used to cover expenses for Derek's landscaping business. I barely managed to ask, how much? He slid a page toward me. Roughly $80,000, not including additional damages. My throat burned. She told me there had never been any college money. He nodded quietly. I know. She told me my father never wanted me. I know. I kept staring at the forged signature. It looked almost exactly like the way I used to sign birthday cards in high school. What happens now? That depends a lot on you, he said. Probate will move forward either way. There can also be a civil case. Possibly criminal action. Then he handed me another file. Thomas Hale's house. Calling it a house didn't even cover it. Behind a large iron gate right on the lake, stood a place built of stone and glass that looked like something out of a movie. Mrs. Alvarez, who had managed the home for years, took me upstairs and opened a room. He kept this for you, she said. There was a window seat, built-in bookshelves and boxes in the closet labeled by year. School supplies. Birthday cards that had never been mailed. A winter coat in the size of a 16-year-old girl. I sat down on the bed and stared at those boxes until Mrs. Alvarez quietly left the room. It was not a dramatic moment. Not the kind where you scream or collapse. It was just final. Something inside me broke once and then settled into place. Over the next year I did not disappear. I took myself back. I changed my number. Broke my lease. Froze my credit. Worked with Daniel and his team. Sat with a forensic accountant and traced every transaction. I listened to Mom's voicemails as they shifted from rage to fake concern to outright threats. Call me now. These people are lying to you. If you do this, all of us will be destroyed. Ashley kept texting too. Mom made mistakes, but you're going too far. Derek wasn't that involved. We're still your family. That line actually made me laugh. One night, I listened to all the voicemails in order one after another and I realized something horrible. Mom never once said I'm sorry. Not once. She said I was emotional, manipulated, cruel, selfish, dramatic, and that I was tearing the family apart. She said family business should stay inside the family. She said blood was everything. What she really meant was silence was everything. The kind of relationship she built only worked if I never asked questions. I sold one of Thomas's commercial properties through the estate, settled the taxes and started my own staging and design business. First work came in slowly, then all at once. Within a few months, that house was no longer just an inheritance. It was my home. It had my things in it, my colors on the walls, my work in motion and people around me who did not lie to my face. And during discovery I learned one more thing. That barbecue night had not been random. 3 weeks before it happened, Mom had received notice that the old trust disbursements were being re-examined. She had figured out that the truth might be getting close to me. And every time her control started slipping she did the same thing. She humiliated me in public so I would fall apart before the truth could reach me. That didn't shock me. It just made me cold. Exactly 1 year after the barbecue the gate camera alert came in just after noon. First a black SUV pulled up. Then a white one. Mom stepped out in cream-colored clothes and oversized sunglasses like she was headed to brunch, not walking into a legal disaster. Derek got out on the other side, angry and exhausted. Ashley climbed out with her phone in hand. Ron came out last. Mrs. Alvarez called me upstairs in my office. They want to see you. I looked at the screen. The gate stays closed. Mom hit the intercom button. Nora, I know you're in there. I answered, what do you want? Open the gate. No. Derek laughed, but it was all anger. You've got to be kidding me. No. Ashley stepped closer. Please. We drove 14 hours. I went downstairs and stood on the inside of the gate. My security guard Marcus stood behind me. Up close they looked even worse than I expected. There were dark circles under Derek's eyes. Ashley's mascara had smeared. Mom did not look smaller or weaker. She just looked for the first time in her life like she did not have control. She looked past me toward the house. So you really got all this? I said, I didn't get all this. This was kept from me and now it's back where it was always supposed to be. Ron stepped forward. Lose the attitude. Your mother is under a lot of pressure. I looked at him. Maybe she shouldn't have stolen from me. Mom's face hardened. Don't use that word. Which one? Stolen. Ashley rushed in. Nora, listen. The state attorney is talking about charges. Real charges. If you just say it was a misunderstanding. A laugh burst out of me. A misunderstanding? Derek grabbed the bars. What do you want? Just say it. Name a number. The number has already been set. My lawyer sent it. Mom said sharply, we can't pay that. That sounds personal. You think you're so smart? No, I said. I'm just finished now. Shaking with anger she snapped, I raised you. With my money. I fed you. With my money. I gave you a home. With my money. Her mouth stayed open. Derek looked away. In a thin, bitter voice she said, you have no idea what it takes to run a household. Derek needed help. Ashley needed help when she had those babies. I cut her off immediately. Thank you. That clears it up. Ashley jerked her head toward her. Mom. That was when Mom realized what had just come out of her mouth. I stepped closer to the bars. So I was your family emergency fund? She recovered fast. You weren't even using that money. Something hot and sharp rose inside me. Not pain. Recognition. You made sure I never could. Nobody said anything for a moment. I said, for years you told me I was irresponsible, emotional, bad with money, incapable of building a life. And while you were saying all of that, you were spending the very money meant to help me build one. Mom said in a low, poisonous voice, lower your voice. I looked at her. Or what? She had no answer. Ashley stepped forward. Hey, she was wrong. Very wrong. But prison, public records, do you have any idea what that's going to do to all of us? I repeated, all of us? That's interesting. Derek slammed a hand against the gate. Marcus took one step forward and Derek backed off. I said, you're not innocent either. You used cards opened in my name. He looked away. Mom said you knew. Of course she did. Ron held up both hands. Everybody just calmed down. And then Mom pulled out the old weapon she always used. Her face softened. Her voice went weak. Nora, honey, please. I was scared. I was trying to keep this family together. Your father had money, yes, but money like that ruins people. I didn't want him taking you away from me. I looked at her and said, he didn't take me away. You had already taken everything from me. That hit her harder than shouting would have. She stepped closer to the bars. I made mistakes. You did. You can still fix this. No, I said. There's nothing left here to fix. I took an envelope out of my bag and handed it to Marcus. He passed it through the bars to Ashley. Inside were copies of the restitution petition, the restraining notice, and the updated filing naming Derek as an additional defendant. Ashley's hands started shaking. Oh my God. Derek yanked the papers out of her hands. What is this? The rest of it. Mom looked at me like I was some stranger standing in front of her. Quietly she said, you would do this to your own family? I held her eyes and answered, this is what you did. At that exact moment, another car turned into the driveway. Daniel's sedan. Right on time. 2 process servers were with him carrying folders. Derek saw them and said, no. Mom turned toward me. Nora. I rested my finger on the intercom button and said, you said that if I disappeared nobody would even notice. Her face fell. Then I said, you noticed when you needed something from me. I turned and started walking back toward the house. Behind me, Mom was yelling my name, Ashley was crying, Derek was cursing, and Ron kept saying, come on, we'll handle this legally. I did not look back once. That night after they were gone, I sat in the library. Outside, the lake was black in the dark. On the desk was that same old photograph of me sitting on Thomas Hale's shoulders, both of us looking into the sun like I had always belonged there. My phone lit up again with another voicemail notification. It was Mom. I deleted it without listening. Then I opened the gate camera footage and watched the moment again when she stepped out of the car. Mom got out first just like she always did. Confident. Angry. Completely certain the door would eventually open for her because before that it always had. I did not delete that clip. Some people start to look innocent in your memory over time. I never wanted to make that mistake with her again.